chat with me while I drive, y'all. So I drove about 30 minutes away from where I stay out to like the nice suburb area because I do DoorDash as one of my 50-11 jobs. And if you go where it's busy, which normally is busy in the hood, but it ain't busy today. But if you go where it's busy, they'll pay you hourly. So like, you don't just get paid for deliveries and tips, you get paid hourly plus tips. And it works out to be more money because you ain't just sitting there waiting for jobs or whatever. And it was dead where I live, dead. So I gotta make a certain amount of money by the end of the month because rent is due. And I'm a little bit short. A lot of bit short. So like when my mom was alive, I'll try and give y'all like a little synopsis of my life, right? So I moved out at 18. I had a really difficult relationship with my parents, right? Like I loved them, they loved me, but it was like very conditional and very unhealthy, toxic, whatever. I was adopted as a infant. I was only in foster care for like a few months, and then I was adopted. And because I was adopted, it was like there was always, I was just constantly reminded that I should be grateful as like a child that should just be able to like live, but I should be grateful, and I should like, I was always in debt. Like I was always made to feel like I was indebted to them and I owed them everything. I owed them my life. I didn't have the right to my own wants, desires, passions. God, I hate this angle. I always gotta be like full chin. Anyway, I couldn't do anything I wanted to do. Like nothing I cared about mattered. And if I ever tried to talk to them about it, I was ungrateful, I was selfish, I was all the things, right? And a couple of things. My mom had OCD, which once she got me, it like, I was like her hyper fixation, and that made it abundantly worse. And then also, she doesn't accept this diagnosis, but there was multiple doctors and counselors and stuff who said she probably has narcissistic personality disorder, and this was way before anybody knew what that shit meant, or it was like a pop culture term or whatever it is now. It's everywhere now. I fully believe she had it. Most people will probably disagree with me because I was like the scapegoat, right? For both my parents. But when it was all behind closed doors and I was an only child, like I have a half brother, but he never lived with me, and he was an adult when I was born, so he's not really like a brother, right? Anyway, that's like a super compact version of my life. And then my mom grew up with parents who had millions. She was always wealthy. And my dad grew up poor, but like, okay, they were farmers, and they were older. Like when they adopted me, they were into their 40s. Like I think my mom, like my kids are grown, and I think she was my age when I was born. So like they were a lot older, so that played a part in it. Whatever. Anyway, it was just a very difficult relationship, and I felt, because of how I was raised, I had like no self-esteem. I was the biggest people pleaser in the world. I could not tell a person no. Like, it didn't matter if I was gonna be like starved and beaten and like kidnapped. I couldn't tell somebody no. I could not do it. It was not in me. So yeah, so there was a lot of issues with that. And then because my mom grew up a certain way, she demanded a certain lifestyle, and my dad worked really hard to provide that lifestyle, and for a while he did. And then I guess, you know, that only lasts for so long, and then you kind of gotta like tailor it back, right? As you get older, you're not able to make as much money, whatever. And he was too scared to tell her that, and so instead of telling her that, he decided to do some really shady kind of stuff. And I won't get into all of it, but I lost everything behind it. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars I've had to pay off. I've had to pay the IRS a large chunk of money. And they were, at the time this happened, I'm living in a trailer park, because I never wanted from my parents. Like, I don't want money from you because I know it comes with strings attached as an adult, right? Like, do not help me. Please do not help me. And if any point in time where there was like an emergency where I had to borrow like 100, 200, whatever bucks from them, I would give them my bank card so they knew what day I got paid. They could take it themselves out of my bank account and pay themselves back. Like, I would never take money from my parents or let them pay bills for me. Like, that's never happened. However, come to find out years later, my dad was borrowing money from people, which he would never pay back. And then he would tell people he was on hard times because he was supporting me. Or I had to pay, you know, I've been paying Robin's rent, and I've got the grandkids and that. They've never done that. Never. So all these people think I'm this like horrible person that was like mooching off my parents and stuff, which is wild. I lived in, you know, the hood and in trailer parks and all this shit, and they were actively stealing from me while they lived in $1 million house and drove BMWs and new cars every year and went on vacations and all this stuff. And then every year when I got a tax return, my dad would hit me up like, hey, and I didn't know any of this at the time. And come to find out, way after the fact, I found all this out. But every time tax return time would come, I would have to lie about how much I got back because my dad would want it all. And like I said, people pleaser. I would give him huge amounts of money when I'm struggling to like feed my kids and shit. And then I found out the lowest he ever made. Anyway, the lowest he ever made was $299,000 one year. That was his worst year. While I'm making like $27,000 a year trying to support my kids and babysitting and fucking doing hair and fucking cleaning offices and doing all these fucking 2011 jobs. Whatever. Anyway, he was taking out loans in my name. He illegally cash surrendered my life insurance that I paid into for fucking like 15 years. Then, whatever. Like I said, I'm trying to do a small synopsis of this. I also found out I had an inheritance at one point from a grandparent that I should have gotten at like 18 or whatever. And, I had enough money at that point to buy a house and like basically pay off a house. And I remember at the time, I was like, this is what I want to do. I had a kid at that point. When I found out about the money, I was like in my early 20s. And so I was like, I want to buy a duplex, both sides of it, rent out one side, So I own property. I don't have to worry about like landlords and getting evicted and rent and all that shit. And then the other side will pay for it'll be like a little bit of an income. The house will basically be paid off. I'm gonna just put all my money into that, and then I will, whatever, my inheritance. Well, they basically told me no, and they wouldn't tell me where the money was. First, they went and saw all the houses with me and got me all excited, and I got a realtor, all that. I found the place I wanted. It was in my budget, all that shit. And then they were like, you're too irresponsible, you won't do it, you're too young, you're not this, you're not that. Now keep in mind, I've been living on my own for years at this point. I had a daughter I was caring for completely by myself at this point. There was nothing that should have stopped me. But at that point, I was still in my early 20s. I was still trying to please them, do everything they want me to do. So I was like, okay, I'll wait. Not knowing, they were telling me no because they wanted the money. And then by the time a couple years later, when I finally figured out where the money was being hidden, I went to get it and it was all gone. There was hardly any left. So there's that. There's so many stories like that. But anyway, so yeah, that all went on, and because of that, basically all the shit hit the fan right before COVID happened, and they lost everything. They went bankrupt. Their house went into foreclosure, all of that shit. And at this point, they were in their late 70s. And my dad's business got shut down. And I won't get into that because it's like legal shit. But he was doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing. And he had me working at his business because he had me shut down the business I was running myself. Come work for him. Now all this, I blame myself. I was so wrapped up in pleasing my parents as a whole ass adult, it's embarrassing. But I shut down the business I was running as a daycare and went and worked for him, and then he was basically running a Ponzi scheme, and I won't get into all that and the business he worked for and whatnot, because they ended up not pressing charges on him because they didn't want the bad press. Basically, that's my opinion. Allegedly, I gotta say that, right? All this is allegedly. And so for like the last 5-6 years, I've just been keeping all of this inside, because right after I found out everything, COVID hit. They lost everything. Now they have been rich their whole lives. I've been broke my whole life. So for me to lose everything was a huge deal, but I'm a little bit more used to being broke. They have had millions their whole life. I don't know how the fuck they ended up broke. The amount of money they had to spend is just astronomical, especially with all the money they was taking from everybody. Anyway, so they shut the business down, the family business. I had 24 hours notice. I didn't have a job, and I ended up losing my house behind it. We were homeless for probably 9 months, 8 months. I lost everything behind my parents. Basically my dad. My mom didn't know about all of it. My dad knew about all of it. But my mom and I are the ones that had the really rough relationship. So it's like, it was a lot. It was a lot. And so I didn't talk to them for like a year. And they always had a place, because when you are a millionaire and you go bankrupt, you still have a little bit of money to like, plus they had people still willing to help them because, you know, their secrets weren't out. And I didn't tell nobody. This is the first time I'm publicly even saying any of this. I still haven't told most people. Anyway, then COVID hit, whatever, we lost everything, blah, blah, blah. I'm homeless. They get an apartment or whatever. And then I don't talk to them for a year. I end up moving into a studio apartment with my kids. And my daughter at this point's like 16. She don't want to stay in a studio apartment that much. So she's going over and staying with them. And they're letting her run around and do whatever the fuck she wants. And I'm like, hey, I need you to not do whatever. I'm not even getting into all that. But, so now I've got issues with my kid behind this. Whatever. Then my dad catches, well, we all catch COVID at the same time. And I get better pretty quick. Kids get better, whatever. My parents are now probably 80. They don't get better. My dad might not have even made it to 80. I don't really remember exactly if he was at 79 or 80. Doesn't matter. He ends up getting very, 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 very sick from COVID. In and out the hospital. Now, he was in COVID isolation in the ICU in the hospital, like where you got to wear like a hazmat suit and stuff. And there were the restrictions to where only one person signs up to see them. That's the one person that can come the whole time. Nobody else in our family was willing to go. They were either too high risk or they were too scared. My brother wouldn't go. That left me. Were we on great terms at this point? Absolutely the fuck not. But it was still my dad at this point. You know, I'd been sober a few years. I didn't even get into all of that. My dad started me on opiates when I was like literally in like first grade maybe. I've been in therapy for a few years at this point, trying to work through my shit. I had gotten better about being a people pleaser. I was able to confront problems, whatever. I'm like, I feel like I need to do this. I can't just let him die in there alone. So I did that. I was the only one for months that could go see him every day. And he ends up dying of COVID, long story short. It took months and months and months and months and months and months, but he ends up dying of COVID. My mom the whole time my mom had been in poor health prior. My dad was basically her caretaker. She had broken her foot and like she couldn't eat, couldn't swallow. She's malnourished, underweight, all whatever. Very poor health. There was several times she had a pacemaker, she had open heart surgery. He was her caretaker. And he was at his breaking point, I think, with that. Well, I know he had told me, like, when we're all better and she's better, I'm gone. Like, I can't do this anymore. She's too hard to take care of. Because she's a very difficult woman, to say the least. And, I couldn't understand it, really. I mean, I could, but I couldn't. Because I was mad at him, too. So, anyway, I've become her caretaker. I'm not living with her yet. And I had no intention of moving in with her. But he didn't get better. And then he died. So, there's that. And he died horrifically. And I'm glad that I was there in the end. And that, like, I didn't just stop talking to them and never go back. Because we did have a discussion where he apologized for what he did. And granted, it was just, I was the only one there. And I'm the only one that knows all of his secrets, really. I think. Because most people are clueless. And he apologized to me. Or whatever. And he admitted to, not everything, for sure not everything. But that, he admitted to enough. And he actually talked about, like, the addiction situation and how, you know, he didn't really go into detail about it, but he did acknowledge the fact that, like, you know, I sent you down a path where there was no other option for you, and I'm really sorry, whatever, and, you know, I was a full-blown addict, and, I mean, he was on everything until fentanyl, until he caught COVID. So he was an addict, actively using until he was 79 years old. So there's that, which I'm sure was a huge factor in the reason that they lost everything. And why he wouldn't confront my mom about spending, and they didn't have what they used to have, and and he was stealing from this person and borrowing from that person and thinking he could just like somehow make it back, and he couldn't. And I understand on a human level how he got to where he was, because nobody wants to confront my mom, but you chose to marry her, and you chose to ruin my life instead of just dealing with your own shit. Do you know what I mean? And that still bothers me, and it's just so hard, because we had that one conversation where he was lucid enough to have it for like 25 minutes, and then that was it, and then he died. So I'm not even close to at terms with that situation, and I'm still struggling. Shit, a couple years ago we were fucking homeless, sleeping in our car in Michigan in the middle of winter through no fault of my own. Well, that's not true. I take fault in ownership in the fact that I put pleasing my parents before doing what was best for me. And I thought, I didn't know that they were going to end up broke and I was going to end up with nothing, you know. At worst case scenario, they die and I'd at least have like some kind of inheritance behind it, you know what I mean? But nope, that didn't end up happening. But anyway, then he dies, right? So then my mom gets sick, and she has no money other than, see, my dad, when he lost his job and they lost everything, he started doing Uber for them to survive. And so they had Social Security, and then he Ubered all the time. And they still had a nice car, so he could do like the Platinum Uber or whatever the fuck it was. So he made enough for them to survive. Now, when you go from making, you know, $500,000 a year to making Uber money, it's a little different, right? And then of course they get a place, the 2-bedroom like apartment townhouse situation. It's really small. It's what we're in now. But it's $3,000 a month in fucking Michigan. And this was before rent was that much here. Now everything's fucking out of control. But they got this place before that was a thing. You could still get a place for $1,000 a month, a 2-bedroom back then, a few years ago. They chose to get the $3,000 a month place. Because, you know, well, your mom just can't be in something that's a mediocre. She's been rich her whole life. Okay, I'm sleeping in my car behind your choices. But okay. And then, you know, I start having the dental problems. My teeth start falling out. So I can't go get another corporate job. Who the fuck's gonna hire me with no fucking teeth? So, that all's happening. He dies. I feel like I've said the same thing 50,000 times. I'm gonna have to edit the shit out of this, and I didn't want to. Pretty quickly, she's incapable of living on her own. She's never lived on her own in 60 years. She's 80 or 81, I don't know. And she's never paid a bill herself, because prior to meeting my dad, she was married for 5 minutes, but he didn't do anything. Her dad was a millionaire. Her dad took care of her whole life until she basically married my dad. And then he took care of her whole life. And they hated each other. They were so mean to each other. That's another thing. It was just a super toxic, abusive, not great household to grow up in. And the adoption shit, and it was just not great. A lot of mental illness. A lot of dysfunction. Anyway, I end up moving in because I'm like, what else am I going to do? I'm not even going to go into where I was living or any of that in this video. But we were still in the studio apartment. We move into my parents' apartment, and I take over the bills. And when my dad died, we did end up getting, so my mom didn't hardly have any Social Security because she didn't work at all. So they cut off I don't know, whatever, a couple $100 she was getting a month, and she ends up getting my dad's Social Security. So that ended up being a good thing, a couple thousand maybe a month. And then I worked part-time remotely, or just did like little things here and there for money, and we split everything, okay? Because the bills were still astronomical, $3,000 a month for rent, plus all the utilities, plus all my mom's. She would just spend money because she was used to spending money. But she had never paid a bill. She had never done anything. She didn't understand how any of that worked. So I had to move in. I'd take over all the finances, and then all the shit my dad had been still hiding. The debts he was still hiding. It was a nightmare financially. But I got it straightened out enough, and then I was able to pay off a lot of debt because we were splitting stuff and whatever. Well, then when my mom died a couple weeks ago, she had nothing to her name. I think she had, like $1,000 to her name when she died. And like, minimum for you to die and just get like the bare minimum by law is gonna cost you, I'd say at least $4,000 for everything. Think about, there was no, like, all the life insurance they had so many policies, they were all gone. My dad had cash surrendered everything. Obviously, he'd cash surrendered all mine too, illegally. Anyway, whatever. So, whatever. They die. I've done as much as I thought I had taken care of everything. Well, when she died, it turned out, a couple other things popped up that I had to take care of. That took all her money that she had in her bank account, which was just like $1,000. And I still have about, I think, like $2,600 that I still have to pay off, that my dad has on my credit that is still there. Now, I tried to fight a lot of it. I got rid of a little bit of it, but most of it I ended up having to pay off myself. There were credit cards and loans and all kinds of debts. But I could not bring myself to file charges on him quickly enough, and then he got sick, and then he died. So it was like, I never really even had a chance to, like, sit there, think about it, like, and I couldn't do it immediately. Like, how do you file fucking charges on your 80-year-old parents? Like, it was so hard. Now, if he wouldn't have gotten sick, I probably would have gotten to the point where I did it. But he got sick and died, and then there was nothing else I could do. So, I ended up, just because I wanted to fix my credit, and I didn't know what else to do, just paying it off. And I paid off almost all of it. And we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And then I owed the IRS money because, he would get this money in my name, which is money I never knew about or saw, but then wouldn't pay the taxes on it. And so then I'm in a debt to the IRS without even knowing it. So then I file for my tax return, and I don't get it. They keep it. And it was a big tax return. And that's how I kind of started to find out everything. And that's when shit hit the fan. And then I lost my house, and then we lived in the car, and yada, yada, yada. But anyway, I say all that to say, my mom died, and I thought it would be easier to take over everything on my own, because it wasn't like she was contributing that much. But behind the cost of, like, oh, and then there's just so many unforeseen expenses when somebody dies. And then there's her hoard of shit. She has an entire basement, floor to ceiling, hoarder style, just a pile of like garbage basically, and I have to figure out how to get rid of all of it. And I've gotten rid of some of it here, some of it there, but it's only been a few weeks, and you have to pay to get rid of trash, and I'm already at my like breaking point financially. I can barely afford to get by. And you know, I've got kids, and I've let Maddie and her daughter move in, and they're supposed to financially be helping out some, but you know, they're also another mouth to feed and all that. And I'm happy to do that, but it's just like, I don't know, I'm so stressed out financially. I'm just not making enough money. And then there's just not enough time in the day. Anyway, so I'm trying to DoorDash today. I try to go where it's busy. I get there, I realize somebody's stolen my charger out my car. And to DoorDash, you have to have your phone, and I'm 30 minutes from my house, and I don't have the money to even go buy a charger because I didn't bring it. I brought literally $10 with me so that for somehow I used up all my gas, I would have like an emergency $10 to like get home or whatever. I don't have money to go buy another charger. Like, I'm just so stressed. I'm so stressed out. I'm so stressed out. And I was supposed to go to therapy last week, and my therapist was sick. My therapist don't even know my mom died. My mom died like almost a month ago. She's been sick. So I haven't talked to anybody. Still sober. I've not relapsed or anything like that. Still 5 years sober. Woohoo. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get into anything else. This video is already long and boring. But I'm just trying to think of anything I can do, make this channel. I don't know. I think I started this channel like a year ago, maybe. Probably not even a year ago. In hopes of getting monetized. Nowhere close to getting monetized. What else? Doing DoorDash, babysitting, doing nails, cutting hair, or not cutting hair, braiding hair. I'll do anything I can do outside of whatever. And then, because of my appearance, I'm so insecure. Like, I don't even like talking to people when I'm fucking doing deliveries. Like, if I go pick up an Amazon order and do Amazon Flex, I gotta talk to some people, and like, I'm embarrassed about how I look. First of all, I'm 55 pounds heavier than I normally am, than I've ever been in my entire life. I didn't even weigh this when I was fucking 9 months pregnant. Like, this is not how I look. Nobody would recognize me. Like, if people saw me that knew me like 2 or 3 years ago, have no idea who I am. They would have no idea who I am. And so it's just like everything is just such a drain and bummer. And it's like, I don't know when's the last time I was genuinely like happy about something, or like excited, or even just like at peace. I'm just stressed out all of the time. All of the time. And another thing, I got sober like 5 years ago, right? Every single night that I sleep, I dream either about using, about something related to using, about selling, or like the abuse that happened around that lifestyle. Like, every single night, something in relation to using drugs, prescription drugs, or whatever, dope, I use. Every single time I sleep. Like, even if I take a nap, I'm like, at what point does this end? Sometimes they're good dreams. Sometimes they're still dreams about using, but they're like the good times. But I'd say 85% of the time, if not more, they are bad, traumatic ass dreams about using. And these are so dirty. When does that stop? Like, everyone talks about this, like, pink cloud or some bullshit. Maybe that's not what it's called. I don't know. Everyone talks about how, like, you're on a high on life after you get sober, or, like, eventually things get better. And it's like, bro, at what fucking point? My attendance is perfect. I've missed never. My, what do you call it? My reviews at my treatment center that I still go to every week are perfect. I've never had a bad review. I've never gotten, like, I'm a rule follower. I do what I'm supposed to do. Like, as part of the people pleaser that's still in me. Like, I've never gotten in trouble in school. I never gotten a detention. I've never been arrested. I've never, like, even when I was breaking the law and, like, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, they were so thought out and meticulously planned because I didn't want to get caught and get in trouble. And they were very few and far between. Like, and then there's the privilege of being white, too. So, like, there's that. And I look like, well, now I look like a dope fiend because I have no teeth. And I look like shit all the time. But when I was an active addict and, like, on prescription drugs and everything else, I looked like a soccer mom, like a white suburban soccer mom. I just happened to not fit any of that criteria. But if you looked at me, you wouldn't know it. You know? It's crazy. My life looked so much better outside looking in when I was on drugs and, like, fully physically dependent on prescription drugs and fentanyl and whatever else. Like, it's just nuts. It's nuts. But I've yet to experience any, like, natural high or, like, life getting easier or, like, any of the things that people talk about from getting sober. I look worse. There's obviously positive things, or I wouldn't still be sober, right? Like, I don't have to deal with abusive men anymore. I don't have to, like, do things that I'm uncomfortable doing anymore. I don't have to worry about getting dope sick. That's the number one thing. That's pretty much the one thing that keeps me sober. But, like, I'm just drained. I'm so drained. I'm so drained. I gotta stop talking. Alright, I need to edit this down because ain't nobody gonna listen to 43 minutes of me bitching. God, I look crazy. I look crazy. I should post pictures of what I used to look like because I used to be cute. You'd never know it. Alright, love you, bye. Like and subscribe. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Like and subscribe.